You are listening to the Life Coach Business Podcast with Amanda Karlstad, episode number 220. Welcome to the Life Coach Business Podcast, a show for coaches who are ready to up-level their business and take their impact, leadership, and results to a whole new level. If you're ready to start taking powerful action and become the leader your business needs in order to grow and thrive, this show is for you. I'm your host, Amanda Karlstad, certified life and business coach and entrepreneurial leadership expert. Now let's get down to business. Hello and welcome to episode number 220. It is so good to be here today. I hope you've all had a fantastic holiday season. I am so excited to bring you this episode. This feels like a really special episode for me. It's an episode that I've wanted to do for a while, and it felt perfect to do it as we close the books here on 2023 and as we move into 2024. I've created this episode as I look back at the 4 years that I've been recording this podcast, creating this content each and every week. There is so much here, and I decided I wanted to do a show to finish up the year that highlighted some of our most popular episodes and bring to you some of the most potent teachings and lessons that live in this show and pulling it into a really special episode for all of you. And so I do want to encourage you to go back and listen if it feels aligned to the past episodes that are being highlighted in this show. Obviously, we couldn't highlight every single episode, and we'll have those episodes linked up in the show notes. Or I'd also encourage you to go back and listen to any episode that feels like it resonates, because as we were going through the content, as we were pulling this together and looking at the content, there is so much power in this content. And I want you all to know, as I bring you these episodes every week, that I really am coming from the lens of how do I serve you? How do I help you to go to the next level in your business or in your life, in your mindset? And so I know that these teachings have the potential to change everything for you. And I really mean that. So with all of this, I sincerely want to wish you all an amazing new year. And I want you to enjoy this very special 2023 edition of the Best of the Life Coach Business Podcast. And I want you to be sure to tune in and subscribe. We've got some really exciting things that will be dropping next week that I know you're going to love. So with that, have an amazing new year, you all. Let's go. What I want to talk to you all about today is critical for you if you're trying to build an online coaching, consulting, or service-based business. And that is the inevitable identity shift that you will have to go through in order to successfully build and grow your business to that next level. And so to frame this conversation, I want you to really think about this. There has never been a better time in history than right now to be able to start a business, right? To step into entrepreneurship, to do the type of work that we do, and to also have the technology at our fingertips to create a hugely successful business. But at the same time, I know for so many of you, you are feeling the challenge of what it's like to build your business. I know so many of you are feeling stuck. You feel like you should be further along, and you might even be questioning whether or not you should continue to build your business. And so what I want to offer to you today is that if you're feeling like you're in that space, I want you to know that there is a real gift for you once you get through the other side of this. And it's likely going to be one of the best gifts that you will receive in the whole process. And that is who you will become in this process, through this process of building your business. Because in order to get to your next level, you're going to have to face your fears. You're going to need to play a bigger game, and you're going to need to go all in. And it is only through this that I promise you, this will literally be the best personal development you will ever go through. And so I know that so many of you are in this space right now where you know you have a ton of value to offer. You're extremely passionate about the work that you're doing. And I know a lot of you have invested in training to become the best you can be. And I know that you deeply feel that this is your purpose to do this work. But the problem is, for a lot of you, you're lacking so much clarity in your business. And I want you to know that this lack of clarity, it's impacting your ability to grow and scale your business. And so if you're resonating with what I'm saying, I want you to keep listening, and not only keep listening to this podcast, but I also want to encourage you to keep going. I want to encourage you to not give up on your dreams of building your business. Because here's the reality. The reality is that the only thing between the level of success that you want in your business and where you are today, it's your own psychology. It only comes down to who you are being in the process of building your business. And that is exactly what we're going to be diving into today. And I believe that what we're about to talk about, this identity shift that you have to make, it will be the most important work that you will do throughout your entire journey of building your business. And that is who you will become in that process. Because here's the real truth. The level of thinking and the level of doing that got you to where you are today, that same level of thinking and that same level of doing, that is not going to get you to where you want to go. And so in order to reach that next level, there is a real identity shift that must occur. And it's so critical that, in fact, until we step into this next level of ourselves and we start to develop very intentionally who we need to become, we are always going to be limited by how we define ourselves. Because what happens is we create these invisible glass ceilings around ourselves through our belief systems, through our thoughts, through how we choose to perceive the world and how we perceive ourselves in the world. And in most cases, we don't even realize we're doing this. So I want to talk to you today about why this happens. And to start with, because we're all human, we all have a brain. And it's really important to understand that our brains are literally hardwired for survival. And so what that means is that even though we've evolved tremendously as a society, our brains are still operating as if we were living in caves and we are trying to avoid being eaten by saber-toothed tigers, literally, right? So what that means is that anytime our brain perceives anything as danger, whether that's a physical threat, right? Something like fire, or even think of a hot stove, right? To what we're talking about today, something more of an emotional threat, our brains are programmed to signal a warning throughout our brain, which then triggers an emotion and actions in our body, right? And that warning system for things like the emotional threat that we're talking about today, those warnings very often sound like those self-defeating, self-limiting thoughts that we have on a daily basis. And so understanding it through that framework, I want you to all really consider this. As you're building your business where everything is likely very new, you're in unfamiliar territory, you're up against a tremendous growth curve in terms of your own skills and, having to step outside of your comfort zone every day and take big risks. All of this is literally challenging your brain on a daily basis. And it's challenging everything you've known up until this point. And at the core level, it's challenging your identity. And it's challenging who you've always been. And so for any of you that are in this place right now, what I want you to understand is that your identity, your self-identity, and how you have identified up until this point in your life, this is one of the strongest forces that you're going to be up against as you're building your business. And because what we choose to believe about ourselves and what we choose to believe about ourselves in relation to our business, that is what creates the level of results that we have in our business. And because our core identity is such a strong force and our brains don't like exerting energy, that means our brains are hard at work doing everything in its power to keep us consistent with how we define ourselves and how we have defined ourselves in the past. So I want you to really consider that. And let's look at this a little bit deeper when we think about growing a business. For most of us, we were probably taught to study hard in school, get good grades, get into a good college, get a good job, work hard, climb the corporate ladder, and save for retirement, right? I know that's what I did. And that's pretty much what drove me up until my late 30s. But what quickly happened was when I decided to go all in on this journey of launching my coaching practice and building my business, that's when it really hit me, this inevitable identity crisis. And what I didn't recognize at the time, but now I can see very clearly, is that I had to go on this journey where I had to shift from this old identity, from this old way of being that I had always known, into this new version of myself that felt completely unfamiliar. And I felt like a total beginner. And so I had to move from this identity of a successful corporate leader as someone who had worked hard, who had climbed the ladder, to this new identity where everything felt very new, very different, and very unfamiliar. And what I can see now is that at the time I was going through this identity shift, this process where I was literally having to shed that old identity, those old layers of being that I had relied on for years, right? That had allowed me to experience success in my life, layers that had been very comfortable for me, to this new version of myself where all of it pretty much became irrelevant. And it felt terrible. And what I had to recognize is that, what had gotten me to that point in my life, that was not what was going to get me to my next level. And so when I realized that, I knew that in order for me to be able to move forward and to really build my business, that I not only needed a real business strategy, but I also needed to do some major internal work and focus on a new way of being that would allow me to create this new self-concept of myself, a new identity that would allow me to do the work I'm doing today. And so for those of you who are in this place right now where you so desperately want to move forward, but yet you feel so stuck in your business, I know you can relate. And what I want to bring to your awareness is that you feel stuck because you're moving from this place of complete familiarity to this place where everything feels unknown and everything you've known up until this point has pretty much become irrelevant, right? And I know it feels excruciating, but I want you all to know that this is part of the journey. This is all meant for you. And so even though you might feel like a total beginner, or you might be questioning if you really have what it takes to do this, I want you to just recognize what's happening. Right now, if you're there, you're in the battle with one of the strongest and most powerful forces in your life. Okay? And that is your core identity. And I can tell you from my own experience that once I recognized this for myself and I started the process of shedding those old layers, which in most cases I was very deeply tied to, it wasn't until I started to shift this for myself that I was able to create real momentum in my business. And so during this crisis, during this shift, the way my brain was trying to preserve this old identity of mine was that it would show me evidence through daily thoughts that weren't serving me, through thoughts that were full of self-doubt, full of second guessing if I was making the right decision, full of thoughts that were showing me reasons and examples why this was probably impossible for me. And I had to go into battle with that every single day. And I also had to choose every single day whether or not I was going to believe it. And so being in that place when I was in this crisis, and what I see happening with so many of you is that you're in this place of in between. You're in this in between zone where you're moving from who you've been to who you need to be. And yet for most of you, you're not fully identifying with this new self. You're just not quite there yet. And when you're not yet fully identifying as this new self, you're also not fully convinced yet that this is all going to work out for you. And so what happens is you start believing all sorts of stories that aren't serving you building your business. Stories that sound like you're not capable. This is all way too hard. This will never work out, right? But here's what's happening. Your core identity, who you have always been, is simply being challenged. And everything that has been familiar for you up until this point, everything within your comfort zone, none of it really matters because you're having to shift into this new identity. And instead, you're having to step into this whole new territory. You're having to learn this whole new set of skills. You're having to put yourself out into the world in a whole new way. You're having to think about things in a completely different way, right? And you're challenging everything that has made you successful and gotten you to where you are today. But here's the good news. You are literally in the process of becoming the next version of yourself. And it's in this next version of yourself, that is what it is going to take to get you and your business to the next level. But here's what I think is really important to understand about vision. When you go ahead and set a powerful vision for yourself, whether that's in your business or in your life, you're not going to have all of the details. You're not going to have the exact steps on how you're actually going to bring your vision to reality. And so because of that, it tends to bring up all of your self-doubt, all of your insecurities, and all of the stories and the evidence you've been believing up until this point. And the reason this happens is because you're creating something that you've never created in your life, right? It literally doesn't exist yet. And so I want you to see that because it's also usually on a level of thinking that is so much bigger than you're used to operating from. And because of this, your brain gets very confused because it's so out of your comfort zone. And so your brain then goes ahead and does everything in its power to try and convince you on why it can't happen, right? Why it's impossible. And I see this all the time. So here's what I want you to consider. For most of you and for most clients that I work with, you've likely never built a business before. You've probably never been solely responsible for the creation and growth of your own business. And so because of that, what I see happen so often when I'm working with my clients is that they tend to come into my program not having a real clear picture of what their vision is. And that's okay. But a lot of them have been working to build their business for several months, or in some cases, even years, and they haven't been able to fully tap into and connect with a big vision. And I've seen others that really have a hard time and haven't even sat down to consider what it is they want to create. And so for most everyone, if you've ever tried to set any type of big vision in the past and you haven't yet achieved that vision, a lot of times we then view it as a failure and we attach all sorts of meaning to it. And the result of all of that is all of the doubt and all of the reasons why then we think it's impossible, right? And we end up in this dance between really wanting this successful business, but then we're entertaining the doubt and the stories on the other side of it. And that just doesn't work. Because when you're in that place, when you're swinging between conditional belief and full-on self-doubt, it's extremely hard to be able to move forward and gain any positive momentum in your business. And so what I want to teach you today is that many of these beliefs, in a lot of cases, are coming from unconscious operating systems. And those unconscious operating systems are something that were likely programmed into us from a very young age. And so it's important to know this because the beliefs that we have are literally creating the results that we have in our business. And they're creating the results that we have in our life. So let me give you a quick example. Maybe you grew up in a family where money was hard to come by. And so because of that, you saw your parents work extremely hard to make money. And your mind then at a very early age decided that making money is hard. And because of that, you now have a belief that in order to make money, you have to work extremely hard. And so that's probably been your MO up until this point, right? So we all have our own belief systems about money, and we all have our own belief systems about everything in our life. And how we perceive things is what creates the results that we have, which is how we then experience our lives. So the key here with all of this is that once you can start to gain a level of awareness to what these belief systems even are, to how you're consciously and also unconsciously perceiving the world, how you're perceiving yourself, how you're perceiving your business, that's when you can start to make real change. And that real change happens in your brain. The approach that I take with my clients is not only with their mindset on the cognitive behavioral level and subconscious level, but it's also on the mechanics of their business, on the actual blueprint and the roadmap on how to effectively build their business. So not only are we shifting their beliefs at a very deep level, we're also diving in very technically with their business. And I'm a firm believer that both are critical when you're working to build your business. And so the great thing about implementing a cohesive growth strategy is that once it's in place, it's not only going to allow you to accelerate your business results, but it's going to give you the ability to scale and sustain your business once you've got the foundation in place. It's a very streamlined model, and it's something that I'm all about. And so there's really 4 main phases to this process that are critical to go through and build that strong foundation and ensure you have the ability to grow and scale in your business. And through each of these phases, I want you to know that there is a lot involved in each of these phases. And so obviously, we're not going to go in all of the details on this podcast, so I'll just attempt to give you the cliff notes here. But the first phase is all about your identity, and it's having clarity in your business. And so this phase is all about gaining clarity in yourself and gaining clarity in your business. And it's within this first phase that there's a lot of deep work that's involved in terms of understanding yourself and also being able to confidently declare your mission and who you want to serve and what you want to create in your business. And it's something that you have to nail. Otherwise, there's going to be a big gap that happens down the road when things get more tactical and technical. And so I want you to understand that there's real power in having clarity in your business. And it's one of the most powerful forces you'll ever have in your business. And so with that, there's so many ripple effects that when you can understand your identity in a way that allows you to cut through the noise and really focus on what matters, that's when you become unstoppable. And it's absolutely the first step if you want to build a successful business. The second phase that is required if you want to be a coach or an entrepreneur with impact is that you then have to build the actual foundation that supports your vision, that supports your mission. And I'm not just talking surface level here. I'm talking about, again, a real cohesive growth strategy that aligns with your mission, and it allows you to deliver an amazing program and an amazing experience for your clients. This is about building a real, tangible foundation that allows you to provide an environment of real transformation. So this next phase, the third phase, is all about implementation. And this is then taking the mission, taking that structure and getting it out into the world, communicating it, and ultimately enrolling clients. And so a really important piece of this phase is being able to decipher what's working and what's not working. And once you know that, being able to iterate from there. And I've found that once you've achieved clarity, once you've built the foundation, and then once you've implemented your foundation, it's really only then that you can start to see what's working and what isn't working in your business. And so I think it's important to know that, again, this is a long game. And once you know what's working, then you can start to get creative, and then you can start to move into the final phase, which is all about scaling. I've been thinking a lot recently about how important thinking big is to your success and to your success as an entrepreneur. And I've been reflecting on this for not only myself, but also just looking at so many of my clients and looking at the momentum that they're creating in their businesses, the wins that they're creating every day in their businesses, and being able to witness that when I look at them and their growth and the real momentum that they're building in their businesses. It comes down to a few different things, but one of the things that I can say that is consistent across the board is that they made a shift into thinking bigger. They started to think bigger for their business. They started to think bigger of themselves. They started to see so much more possibility and started focusing more on what was truly possible for them versus focusing on what wasn't there, right? What wasn't working. One of the reasons why I think thinking big matters is because what thinking big will require of you. And I've talked recently in past podcast episodes about the importance of your future self and being able to live into your future self. And when I think about thinking big, and especially through the lens of business, the truth is that being able to think big in your business about yourself, it requires a much, much higher level of skill. It requires a very profound skill of being able to first allow yourself to go there, to go to that big vision. And it also requires a tremendous amount of emotional maturity and emotional management, which is so, so important. And so when you allow yourself to have big dreams in your business, to think of yourself as worthy enough to achieve the goals that you have, that is when you open yourself up to a whole new level. And so this is really, really important because as humans, the truth is that we have a natural desire to grow. And even when you look at nature, if you look at anything like plants or trees, for example, and you look at a plant or a tree from a very basic level, the truth is that they're always growing, right? They start as a seed and they grow to a mature plant or a mature tree, right? And they grow continuously throughout their life. And when it comes to the end of their life, right, when they're no longer growing, that is when they start to die. And the same is true for us as humans. We have an evolutionary need for growth. We have a desire for growth. And when you think big, when you allow yourself to think big, your brain, it will start to pave the way for you. It will start to identify the possibilities for you in order to achieve that which you most want. You'll start to see the possibility versus the challenge in your business. And what happens from there is new opportunities, and so many of them that you never thought possible or that you never could have anticipated will start to appear. And so what happens in this process as you start to take action from this place of thinking big, when you start to step into this future version of yourself, it forces you to grow. It forces you to go through the process of growth, which I want to talk about more in just a second. It's really the starting point of creating something so much greater than you ever thought possible. It's truly where becoming an example of what is possible is where the process of becoming that example starts. So this is one really important reason and aspect as to why I think thinking big matters and why I believe it's one of the things that is required of you if you want to grow your business to a significant level. And when you think big in your business, one very important byproduct of that is that when you develop a habit of this, you immediately start to shift your focus, your energy into the direction of your dreams, into the direction of what's possible. And that's really significant because what we focus on is what we create. Thinking big is so, so important. It requires more of you. Thinking big asks you to become that even more extraordinary version of yourself. And I think this is an extremely beautiful and required thing that you get to experience as an entrepreneur. There's a huge distinction that I think is really important to be clear about with this. So betting on yourself doesn't mean that you bet on yourself only when times are good. It doesn't mean that you only bet on yourself when you see a clear path. It doesn't mean betting on yourself only when we feel like we might get the guaranteed outcome. What I'm talking about here is your ability and your willingness to bet on yourself even when it might not feel like there's, for instance, enough money in the bank. It means betting on yourself even when the world is in chaos and there's uncertainty everywhere you look. It means betting on yourself even when it doesn't make logical sense. So when the chips are down, this is what I'm talking about. Betting on yourself no matter what. It's the type of betting on yourself when you're fully committed and there's no turning back. And so that's the betting on yourself I want to really encourage you to think about. And I really want you to look at where you're at with that. And I want to say that this type of betting on yourself, most people in this world are going to call you crazy for this, or which would call you crazy for this. And it's something that the majority of people in this world don't and won't ever understand. And that's okay. But this is also the type and the level of betting on yourself that I believe is really required to get to the level of where you want to go. And here's why. Because when you're building a business, when you decide to be an entrepreneur, when you sign up for this, you've got to have some grit. You've got to be committed to the process and committed to the long game. And these are all concepts that I've talked about in previous podcasts that you can go and check out. And I want to be clear that if you want to win in this industry, if you want to be in this game, it's going to require full commitment and it's going to require you to play the long game. And so it's not enough just to be interested in the process. It's not enough to just dip your toe in and try to do some things in your business, implement some things and get frustrated when maybe on the first few tries, things didn't work out exactly as you'd hoped. The type of betting on yourself that I'm talking about is betting on yourself and pushing through no matter what. And when you get to that point, the beauty is it truly does only become a matter of time. When you set out to do anything significant in your life or in your business, the truth is that there are distinct phases that you will go through. And these phases, these levels that no matter what it is that you're trying to do in your life or in your business, it's true that in any case, whether you are building a business or you're doing something new, something like even establishing a new workout routine, for example, that there are distinct phases that every human, that when you're on the path to achievement, when you're on the path to achieve something new, that you will go through. And I want to emphasize this because it's really important to understand, because for most coaches, you all want to skip the first two levels that I'm about to teach you. And so let's talk about what those four levels are. So the four levels are this. The first level, the first phase that every human will go through when learning something new, when creating something new, is commitment. It's making a commitment to the thing. It's making a commitment to build the new habit. It's making the commitment to building the business, for example. And so the first step in any new endeavor is going to be commitment. And so this is why I talk all the time about the importance of commitment in the business building journey. And the second step, the second phase that you'll go through is courage. And so what this means is having the courage to go after that commitment. It's demonstrating courage to go out and to do the things that need to be done in order to create the business, in order to create the new habit, in order to achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. Once you've moved through that phase, and by the way, this phase can take a long time. It takes however long it needs to take. But it isn't until we thoroughly move through that courage phase that we can then move into this third step, into this third phase, which is the phase that we so often want to jump to immediately, which is confidence. But in order to arrive at this level of confidence, we have to pass through the first two levels of commitment first and then courage. And it's only then that we can arrive at that level of confidence, which is, again, the destination that so many of you want. And so after we've reached that level of confidence, that fourth phase, that fourth step is capability. And so it's arriving at a place of capability with whatever it is that you've set out to achieve or to create. It's having a sense of capability about whatever it is that you've gone out and done. So it could be arriving at that first 100K or arriving at that first 500K or million, whatever that amount is for you. It's feeling a sense of confidence and having built a level of capability to have built a business to that level. So here's why this is all really important for you to understand. So often when we start out in this process, we want to jump to that third level. We want to jump immediately to that third level of confidence. And so very often I see a lot of coaches that say they're working on their confidence. And this might look like doing all different types of mental work, trying to cultivate a sense of confidence within themselves. And I will say, in some cases, the mental work of this can be very useful. But when it comes to creating actual results in your business, the only way to build true confidence is by first going through the first two levels thoroughly. So that means fully committing to your goal of building a successful business. And once you've made that full commitment, then it's about operating and demonstrating courage in the business, courage in the day-to-day. The truth is that having applied the compound effect, making consistent and committed decisions in my business over time has been what has produced the biggest results. And so in thinking about this, I was just thinking about how powerful this has really been for me, how powerful it's really been in my business. And when I look at my clients, as so many of them are in the process of scaling their businesses and looking at how important the compound effect is to them and how so much of the work that we do focuses on this concept. So whether it's deciding what their new program will look like, or maybe how they're going to price it, what their strategy is around how they're going to market their program. And it could even be down to how they want to schedule their days, their work weeks in a way that allows them to not only scale and grow a business to $500,000 or $1 million, but also be a present parent. And so all of this in combination with all of the mindset and the inner work and the belief work that must be present in order to grow and scale effectively, all of those decisions, all of those beliefs and decisions end up creating such a huge compound effect in their business and also in their life. But here's something that I want you to really understand about the compound effect. The truth is that when you are applying this, and by the way, you're always applying this in some way, even though you're not consciously thinking about it on a daily basis, right? So when you decide with intention what that compound effect is going to be, what happens is that so often, and I see this happen a lot in the coaching industry and just in online business in general with entrepreneurs, because this is human nature. But what happens is everybody wants to jump really quickly to the big win. Everybody wants to jump to that 6-figure launch. Everybody wants to jump to that 200K result, that 500K or that $1 million result. But the reality is that so often we're not consciously thinking about the effect of the compound effect on a daily basis in the process. And when I look at this, the importance of the compound effect in getting to that result and building a business that is truly sustainable and that is successful over the long term, this is what it really comes down to, is applying and consciously, deliberately applying the compound effect in the business. So this is why this is such a huge focus with my clients as I'm helping them take their businesses to the next level. And it's why it's what I talk about all of the time, why we want to create an ecosystem, a sustainable ecosystem in the business that's truly intentional, that truly allows them to grow and scale in a sustainable way and not in a frantic way. And it's really approaching the business in a way that's intentional and purposeful and creates a real foundation that builds and compounds over time. And what happens is that when we do this, it allows us to set their business up for success, both in the short term, but also in the long term. But here's what I got to tell you all about this. A lot of times this isn't the bright, shiny, fun work. A lot of times this is instead what it means to show up on a Tuesday and get to work, whether that's on creating assets that are needed to promote an upcoming launch, or maybe putting a new funnel together that's going to serve their clients or their business over the next year or more. It could be a new skill that you really don't feel like learning. It could be a new software, a new system. It could be even things like paid ads, for example. And because running a business, especially when you're a solopreneur, it requires you to really be in charge of everything, right? And so a lot of times these things can feel so tedious and they feel not fun. And they're definitely not like the glamorous posts that you might be seeing on social media. But the truth is that they're also what creates the most powerful compound effect in the business. They're the things that aren't going to get the likes. They're not going to get comments. They're not going to get the shares. And especially not in the moment when you're creating them. And they're probably not going to feel fun in the moment because they're going to require a new level of you. They're going to require that you grow, that you expand, and that you learn new skills that you might not currently have. And I want to remind you all, because our brains, one of its jobs is to conserve energy. What happens is when you are in the process of learning and implementing new things in your business, especially when it's something new, your brain will resist. And I see this happen so often. It'll start to offer thoughts like, this isn't fun, or this won't work, or this is too hard, whatever version that might be. And what happens is then it's very common to go back to what feels comfortable, to go back to what feels safe, to go back to that which doesn't challenge you. And my friends, the compound effect, I want you to understand that it works in that way too. So whatever it is that you're focusing on, whatever it is that you're putting your energy into, whatever it is that you're allowing your mind to think, whether it serves your business and your clients or not, is what you will experience, and that will happen in the form of your results. So I want to offer to all of you here that I know all of you want the big win. I know all of you listening want to be an example of what is possible. I know all of you want to be able to make a huge impact with your work and help so many clients. And I know you're all doing such purposeful work. And I want to recognize that and I want to commend you on that. I know you want to make a lot of money. You want to have a lot of freedom. You want to have flexibility in your life and be a present parent as you do this. And what I will say is that all of this is possible for you. It's 100% available to every single one of you. But it's so important that you also understand that all of that, the big win, the being an example of what is possible, being able to make a huge impact, helping your clients transform, making a ton of money, having that freedom and the flexibility in your life, creating your dream life and your dream business, all of that are the byproducts. All of that comes from the small incremental decisions that you make on a daily basis. Those small incremental decisions that you make to show up in service to your clients, those small incremental decisions you make to learn what you need to learn so that you can actually take your business to the next level. Those small incremental decisions you make so that you don't allow yourself to get distracted. The small incremental decisions you make to not allow your belief in your goals, in whatever it is that you most want and most want to create, that you make a decision and you hold that belief and you build that belief and you find evidence of that belief in any place that you can. That you decide not to abdicate your responsibility for results to anyone else or to anything outside of you. That you take full ownership, full responsibility, and understand that you get to create the results you have every single day. And that might mean that you don't see that big win immediately. In some cases, it might, but in a lot of cases, you might not. But you have to remember that those big wins, those byproducts of making those small committed decisions and following that through with your actions every single day, that big win is the byproduct of you showing up on a Tuesday like you said you would. It's the byproduct of you creating something of value that serves your clients, that serves your business growth. Learning that new skill, implementing that new thing, stepping outside of your comfort zone, not allowing your focus to be on why things aren't working, only looking for ways in which they are. This is about demanding a higher standard of thinking from yourself, demanding a higher standard of being and operating that's actually congruent with the level of results that you most want. This is the power of the compound effect. And I have to tell you, when you develop this skill, when you allow yourself to go to a place that is so far beyond where you currently are, and once you lock into that 10x vision for your business, for yourself, for your clients, it truly does change everything. And what happens is it becomes the new standard by which you're able to make all of your decisions. It becomes the new filter that you run everything else through. It becomes your North Star. And in so many ways, it actually simplifies so much of your business. And so one of the reasons that I love this concept, I love the art of thinking big, is because of what it requires of you. What it requires of you in order to achieve that 10x vision. Now to be living, to be experiencing on a whole new level, the power of creating my business and my life with intention. And I just know that on such a deep level, and experiencing this on such a deep level, that bringing those desires, bringing the desires that I had years ago into reality, is that we all have the power to do just that. So when I look back at this year, as I look back on what I've created, I am so grateful that I chose to believe in my dreams, that I chose to listen to those desires, that I chose to believe in. And here's a quote that I love from Rumi that I think sums it up, is that what you seek is also seeking you, and that I've chosen this vision over and over again, even when I didn't have the evidence. Instead, I chose to believe in my ability to create my business and to grow my business to the level that I've grown it, that at the same time, I've also been able to be so intentional with my life and how I wanted to intentionally live and what I wanted all of this to look like, how I wanted to spend my time, how I wanted to show up in my personal life, that now I get to live those choices today. So I'm offering here for you to choose belief, to choose to believe in yourself, to choose to believe in the dreams that you have, no matter what. It has been such a beautiful gift that I have given myself, that I've given my family, that I've given to those that I serve. So the lesson that I want to emphasize here is the power of your choice, of your ability, your agency to choose belief over doubt, to choose in your ability to create that you most want to create, despite what your past might tell you, despite the evidence that you think you have that's telling you that you can't, and deciding anyways that you are choosing, that you're choosing belief, that you're going after it, to keep going after that which you most dream of. Because again, what you are seeking is also seeking you. Hey, if you're ready for a real breakthrough in your business and want to grow and scale your business to at least 6 figures or more in annual revenue, I invite you to apply for my exclusive program, The Mastermind, at amandakarlstad.com/the-mastermind. I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Life Coach Business Podcast. If you want to learn more about how to build, grow, and scale your business and accelerate your results, visit amandakarlstadcoaching.com.